Right, so let's get going. So thank you for popping in for our tech talk tonight, folks. This is the Microsoft 365 Tech Talk, and I'm your nominated presenter tonight, VK4GMI. Remotely, we've got Steve, who's also here, but finds it a little easier to see things on the screen. And we also have Hayden and you. I am going to record this using the wonders of 365, so I'm going to record the session. It's already running there. So there will be a video of this with all the screen material available in the Teams collaboration space after tonight's event. I hope I remember to turn the recording off, but if someone could prompt me at the end, that would be great. All right, so what we're going to do tonight is just go through a slide deck that I've prepared to tell you a little bit about Microsoft 365, and in particular, to give you the perspective of why the committee thinks 365 is important. Not everybody in the club has taken up 365 at this stage. That presents us with a few little challenges around licensing through Microsoft. And I'll take a moment to thank the previous committee for organising the 365 environment for everyone's benefit, because it is quite a useful tool set to have. And you have to jump through some hoops to get that organised. So I take my hats off to those who went before us to organise that. So I'm just going to change my settings here a little bit so I see exactly what you see up there behind me. And that way we can follow along together. So, 27th of March 2023, Redcliffe Radio Club tech session rather. So the agenda tonight is relatively lightweight and straightforward. We're going to give you all a bit of an overview of what Microsoft 365 is. Like many things in technology, words are just words until you get some meaning behind them. So we're going to go through just giving everybody a bit of a sense for what 365 actually means. Microsoft 365 is a very, very big, complex ecosystem now, but there's only a very small portion of it that's relevant to us with our licensing and relevant to our interests as a club. The committee has certain things that they like or would like to get out of our use of Microsoft 365. So I'm going to pull those out as I understand them. Feel free to add from the floor if you'd like to, but it's important that you understand as members, what does the committee want to do with this product? Why is it important to us? I'm also going to try and give you a few features that you might consider important as individual members who are getting something free through being a member of the club. For some of you, you may not have this capability today, so it's quite useful to have some of these extra features available. Then I'll give you just a quick show and tell, a demonstration of some of the key features, because I use 365 at work and have done for some years. I've implemented it a few times for the companies that I work for, so I'm quite familiar with it, and I think it's a wonderful product suite. If you're in a business sense, it's a very, very useful platform to be able to collaborate with people with. And then we'll just talk about the next steps for those who may not yet be on the bandwagon for 365. Okay. When it's all boiled down to it, the only things that really matter to us in the club and that we're licensed for are these few icons up in the Microsoft graphic there. So if you're not particularly familiar with the graphics, Microsoft like to confuse us all by changing these from time to time. But down here are the icons and the applications that are of interest. So Word for doing your letters, for example. Excel for all of your spreadsheeting functions. A very fancy calculator, if you like. PowerPoint for your slide presentations. Most people don't have a need for PowerPoint, but tonight I'm using PowerPoint to do this slide deck. It's an easy tool to use for demonstrating information. Outlook is our email client. You can think of it as a simple email tool if you like, but it does have quite a lot of extra functionality built in if you want to go and look further into the uses of Outlook. Exchange over this side is just the email backend system, so it's relevant to everybody here. Microsoft take care of us for that. Thank you very much, Microsoft. And SharePoint, again, it's not really relevant to most of us, although it does provide us a couple of options. One is around websites, for example. So we may elect to use it for a website hosting platform in the future. I'll come back to SharePoint in a moment. OneDrive is cloud storage. So you'll be familiar perhaps with other products like Dropbox, Google Drive, things of that nature. There's a ton of them out there in the IT industry these days. They're cloud-based storage platforms where often they'll have a small free offering. And if you pay a small number of dollars a month, it turns into a commercial offering where you can have quite a robust storage platform available to you in the cloud that's automatically backed up and protected. And you'll see over here, if you could read the small print, we have 1 terabyte available. So every one of us who are members and who elect to sign up for a 365 email address through the club gets 1 terabyte of cloud space for free. And you can use that for whatever you like. It doesn't have to be club material necessarily. If you want somewhere to stick your photos of the car you're washing on the weekend or your fishing trip photos, feel free to use your OneDrive space for that purpose. And then over here is one of my personal favourites, which is Teams. So that is the collaboration tool that opens up the ability for people to work together very, very easily in many different ways, both in terms of communication, how do we communicate with people, the collateral, the files and documents and things that we work on, and how you can share those things both within the team membership and also to external parties where it's useful to do so. There's a meme going around at the moment, if you like memes. Teams sits on SharePoint. So Teams files are SharePoint files. And some people say, well, no, it's the files in Teams are SharePoint files. It's the same thing. SharePoint is very complex and can be difficult to administer. Microsoft, to their credit, have realised this over the years, and they've put Teams as a layer on top of SharePoint. There's no need to worry about the technical details behind that, but when you talk about files in Teams, they are also files on SharePoint and vice versa. So any questions on that first summary slide page? All right, so I'll pop on to the next slide in the deck now. Yes, Doug?
Just one thing, Glenn. The difference between Teams and SharePoint is SharePoint is a more complex thing and Teams is just sort of sitting on top of it.
They are complementary but different products. If you think about it, if I can simplify it as much as I can, SharePoint started out as a data storage and collaboration platform. So it was effectively a fancy version of a website. So you had a repository to store your data, your files, contents, images and things. On top of that, they put a lot of content management layers. So you can check documents in and out. You've got version control and all these sorts of features were built as part of SharePoint. And then on top of that, they added the web presentation layer. So it was quite easy to have SharePoint make websites. And Microsoft, in their wisdom, went completely crazy with this and said, well, everybody who logs onto SharePoint can have their own personal website, and people made all sorts of silly decisions, and it just, unless you had a lot of governance over it, it very quickly got out of control. So what they've realised is, well, to get people to collaborate, you don't need all of that complexity, and that's what Teams has been made to do, to simplify collaboration. But they are both available as separate platforms. So does that answer the question, Doug?
Yes, it does.
All right, thank you. All right, next slide. I'm just going to show you 2 short videos. They're only a couple of minutes each, but it's a Microsoft training material that's, I think, worth having a quick look at. The first one is the basics of 365. It talks about the business license, but for our purposes, it's the same thing. And then there's just a short little 2-minute video of an introduction to Teams. So this is very, very nicely done professional graphics from Microsoft. There are a ton, an absolute ton of videos on the Microsoft website. So for those who really want to get a little bit more skillful in the use of the product and what it can be used for, I strongly encourage you to go and have a look at the Microsoft training videos, and I've got a link at the back of the deck. So without further ado, we'll see if this will work for us easily.
Use these best practices to get the most out of Microsoft 365 when you collaborate. To start, save your document to OneDrive to back it up to the cloud, so you can access the doc from anywhere and collaborate with others. If there are others you want to collaborate with right away, type their names or email addresses, and the file will be shared immediately. Autosave keeps everything saved automatically, so you don't lose a thing. When you're ready to add more collaborators, select Share and send it to anyone you need to. All recipients will get an email notification to join in. When you're collaborating, everyone's working on the doc at the same time. No need to email copies back and forth. Presence indicators show where someone is making a change, and you'll see their changes as they make them. Add comments to give feedback or ask a question. Use an @mention to get someone's attention right where you need it. Anyone you @mention will receive an email notification with a comment. They can respond immediately from the email or click a link to go straight to the comment in the document. They can even do this while they are on the go in the Outlook mobile app. It's simple for your collaborators to keep working on the document on the web. They can switch to reviewing mode to make suggestions and add comments. When they @mention someone in a comment, they can also add a task. Office.com is a great way to get back to your work, and collaborating doesn't miss a beat. When you return to the document, it's simple to catch up on recent changes. Look for the blue dots in the left margin and different color text highlighting where the changes were made. Right-click and choose to accept or reject suggestions others made. And complete tasks. Need to go back to a previous version? Select the document title and choose Version History. If you're on the go, use the Office mobile app to make edits, comments, and stay productive on the go. Do your best work together in Microsoft 365.
So it's a Microsoft marketing spiel, I get that, and it's business focused, I get that, but you can see straight away there's some of the ways that it makes it very easy to collaborate with other members of the club if you're working on documents. The management committee is using it quite extensively now and getting better at it each month, I would say, and we use it for document markups in particular is a new thing. We're doing the constitutional review now, as you all are aware, and that's one of the first serious documents where we've really got in there and attempted to use the online markup capabilities. The other one I just thought very quickly to show you was the Teams one, because Teams builds on those concepts just outlined, but in quite specific ways related to Teams. So this one's shorter, it's only about 2 minutes, so I'll have a quick look at that if that's all right.
Welcome to Microsoft Teams, a collaboration app to help your team stay organized and have conversations, all in one place. In Teams, you can see a list of all the teams you're on. Teams are made up of channels. You can build them by topic, department, or just for fun. Channels are where the real work gets done, where you hold meetings, have team conversations, and share files. At the top of each channel, you'll find tabs for channel posts and files. You can also turn your favorite files, apps, and services into tabs. When you share a file in a channel conversation, you and your team can edit it at the same time and share thoughts alongside it. Go to the Files tab to find all the files that have been shared in a channel, or Files on the left to see all files shared across teams. Use Chat when you want to talk privately with a person or a group. Select New Chat at the top and type in a name or names. Then type a message and send it. To make a call directly from a chat, choose Video Call or Audio Call. If your organization has it set up, use Calls to call anyone from Teams, even if they're not using it. In Calendar, you can see everything you've got lined up for the day or week, or schedule a new meeting, webinar, or live event. This Teams calendar syncs with your Outlook calendar. To join an in-progress Teams meeting, select Join. Select options for your camera and audio, then select Join Now. In a meeting, you can choose to record the meeting or share content from your device, such as a PowerPoint presentation. Go to Activity for a view that lets you catch up on all your unread messages, app mentions, replies, voicemails, and more. Use the command box to search for specific items or people, take quick actions, and launch apps. And download the mobile app so you're in sync when you're on the go. Now bring in your colleagues and let the teamwork begin.
So there you go, a quick little taste of Teams. I know some of you have started to get involved with Teams, which is great, but there are many things that we can do that we're just scratching the surface at this stage. So why does the committee want us to use Microsoft 365? I'll just run through them in order, right? If we think about, it's useful to think about the way that we used to do things, and some of us still do things, pen, paper, lick the envelope, stamp, all this sort of old school way of doing things. Many of those things are going the way of the dinosaur, and often for good reason. It's the modern world that we live in, and we as technology people should be embracing technology in all forms, in my opinion. But one of the big benefits that I see for this type of platform is centralisation of information. So I just have to look down at our library down at the end of the room there, and I can see so much information that's hard to find. Can't search it very easily. Thank you, Ken, for all the work, by the way. I'm not disparaging your work, but it's hard to do, right? Because you have to go and look at paper indexes and things like that and hope that it's there and hasn't been taken away. If you have all of these sorts of things, documents, emails, photographs, pamphlets, service manuals for radios, etc., etc., if you have all of that material made electronic and in a central repository, the very first point there, then you have just one place to go and search. You've got one source of truth, and hopefully you've got the latest version, right? Because nothing's worse, and it drives me insane at my work, every work I've worked in, when email chains are done to conduct business and document reviews. Very, very difficult to know that you're working on the single source of truth. So having a central single repository is very, very useful for that. And as you saw in one of the demos there is a version control thing. I think it actually stores 99 versions if I'm not mistaken. So you can go back if you need to look at previous edits of documents and things of that nature. The data is backed up, so when even though we're not paying one red dime for this capability from Microsoft, it automatically goes into the cloud, and it's stored in at least 2 geolocated separately data centers. So it's quite safe to have the information there. It's not unheard of for Microsoft to have glitches now and again, but I've yet to see information disappear. As long as you know what you're doing, you have it stored there, because their business is making sure that that data is available to you as a customer, whether you're paying or whether you're getting it for free like we are as an organisation of our type. There is security involved. So, for example, the management committee is often dealing with matters that are sometimes sensitive, and so you obviously don't want that information just to be available willy-nilly across the environment. Likewise, information within the club may not be appropriate to share outside of the club. So there is a significant amount of security natively built into the platform, and the basics of it are quite easy for people to understand. And Teams, in fact, we'll demo that shortly, Teams makes it automatic and very easy to compartmentalise information so that only certain individuals or groups can get to that information. There are always ways to share it wider, but you have to take steps to do that. So security is the big thing. my time at the club here, I've seen old documents and photographs and QSL cards and all sorts of things that are historical in nature, and often they get pulled out from a box that's been in storage. The weevils have got to it, it's got mould on it, it deteriorates over time in physical form. It's hard to find and often gets lost. One of the attractions of this electronic cloud-based platform is its permanency. So long as you maintain your licensing, and ours is free, then whatever material we put up onto that platform will be there forever. So we can, if we're there in 20 years and we're still on the platform, we can go back and look at photos or documents or even chat messages between people from 20 years ago, right? It makes it easier to maintain a historical view of what the club and its groups and its individual members have all been up to, right? So that's a useful thing to preserve information and knowledge for the future. It's just like minutes for the committee. Anyone who's been on the committee you keep minutes officially so that you know what was decided and when and for what reasons and justifications and what have you. This just amplifies that concept to everything that gets put into there as information. Documents, photographs, for example. The demonstration also showed that it allows you for efficient online real-time collaboration on documents. So when there's a need to work on things together, it could be a project. We've got Redfest coming up this weekend, and I'll show you a Redfest channel here in a moment in Teams. That's a great place to put your material, your documents, your spreadsheets, your flyers to stick out the front to say car park left, car park right, whatever it might be. You put all that collateral in there once, and the next time you come around to that event, if it's an annual event, just go there, pull it out, recycle it, off you go again. So the collaboration in real time is very useful as well. If you're working on teams on projects or activities or tasks, you can do that in real time. And it becomes very, very powerful if you have Teams installed on your phone, because then you can collaborate in real time with photographs, videos, all sorts of things. And as I've mentioned, it's an easy way to share information both within the club, between individuals like myself and Bill here, or the management committee, or the group that's working on the John Moyle Field Day or getting ready for Redfest. It's a very easy way to share and collaborate on information like that. So that's the first thing from the committee's perspective. Any questions or additions that are key? There's another big thing this is a bit of a hobby horse of mine. It's a people-first collaboration platform. We have to be a bit sensitive and cautious about privacy of members' information. So some of the members who are not on this platform have private email addresses. Now, I can tell you that when I was setting up the meeting tonight, and I'm sure Gary would know this well, when we're doing just administrative tasks, organising things for club members, it's an extra administrative burden to keep those private bits of information private and not expose them to the wider audience without due permission. It would be much easier if everybody had a 365 email account, because then we could just have everybody in the members thing, poof, out the window, right? It's also easy to find people and communicate with them if you don't have all the information. I'm relatively new in the club, right? I don't know everybody in the club. I kind of know all the faces here, but I sometimes would struggle with call signs. I won't have the mobile phone numbers for most of the people in the club. I haven't worried about phone numbers for years now as much as I can, because I use tools to make it easy to find people. I usually know someone's call sign. I know it's KET over there. I'll just look up KET on my Teams app and I can make a voice call to Doug without having a clue what his phone number is. Same thing with email. I don't need to worry too much about email addresses. If he's on Teams, I can send him a message in Teams. All I've got to know is the barest bits of information. His name might be Bill. I might know his call sign. Things like that become easier for communication. And particularly, and this is one of my hobby horses, particularly for new members who come into the club. There was a guy walked in here the other night. What was his name? Can't think of his name though, isn't that funny? The fellow who came in that has just joined us a week ago, so I've got his name written down on my notepad. All I wrote down was his name. Now, I don't know the guy's call sign. He's brand new with an F call, I think. I don't know his email address, I don't know his phone number, but if we had a process where, new guy, you've signed up for the club, you paid your money, here's your 365 email address assigned to you, all I need to know is his name. And I can say, hey buddy, how you going? How you enjoying your first week? Anything I can help you with? Can I don't know, show you where the men's room is, or help you with the radio in the club room, or something of that nature, right? If we had process wrapped around this, it would make it really useful and helpful for new members who are coming in to feel more connected to the people in the club. We're technology people, but we should be people as much, if not more, than we are technology people. That's the only way that we're going to survive as clubs, right? We've mentioned it's easy to work remotely and online with anyone in the club through exactly what we're doing tonight, and through Teams we've all got that security built in. And it's easy for club members to find information relating to the club and hobby in general. My friend at HX, who's not here tonight, brought in a thumb drive some months ago, and he said, oh Glenn, could you put this information up into Teams? What was it? Dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of old service manuals for radios and operator guides. Now we know that we could probably find that stuff on the web, but if it's equipment that we have here, why not have those copies, find them, get a good copy, because often the ones on the web are a bit up and down in quality, get good copies, stick them in our Teams environment, then I just use the search feature in Teams and I go looking for TS140, poof, there's the PDF without blinking an eyelid or searching further. Okay? And as they lightly touched on in the video, we've not really done too much about this ourselves yet, but it can make it easy to assign and track tasks across the club. We've got Redfest coming up this weekend, and it's been interesting sitting with John these last few weeks as we've been preparing for it, because John hasn't been particularly close to some of the organisational aspects, but if there was a checklist and a task list or something, and it was stored in the Redfest channel in Teams, every year just wheel it out, tick the box, assign people tasks electronically. Glenn, have you got the cones for the traffic cones for the parking on the day? Yep, boss, tick box, done, right? So there are lots of little automation things in there that we can make use of going forward.
2024.
That's right. Any questions on that page? All right. Well, they could be ice cream cones. Doug, we've got a reputation to uphold now, apparently. Okay, so some things that you as members should think about, right? If you're not on the platform already, it would be really helpful for the admin team, I'm thinking mostly of Gary here, but for anyone in the committee, or in fact people in groups working on tasks and projects, it would be helpful to have everyone in the club with their club email address on the platform, because then all you need to know is an email address. You can send emails backwards and forwards. It's not the end of the world. You don't need to replace or interfere with your existing email address. It's really easy just to log onto a web page and get the emails there. It's not particularly difficult, cumbersome or time consuming. I know some people won't do it. That's okay. But I would encourage people to think about it, because it just makes collaboration and administrative stuff for the club easier. Video conferencing in groups like we're doing here tonight with Hayden and Steve at a long distance. You get all those features natively with Teams if you're on the platform. We know that if you have an external email address, we can send you a link and we can still invite you into Teams meetings, but the real-time collaboration stuff doesn't really work very well unless you're on the Teams platform, which means having an email account assigned to you and having the Teams app, particularly on your phone. So if John and I have been talking about an antenna I'm going to put up this weekend, and he's busy because he's doing what he does, and I'm halfway up the tower and I've got a problem, I don't know what to do. If I've got my phone in my pocket, I can hang on with one arm, I can call John on Teams and, hey John, check out this joint or this angle or something on the tower, and I can just show him in real time, what do you think I need to do? And he'll say, first thing, get down, you fool, you don't know what you're doing. But then he might give me some good advice. So that's a tiny little option for, or an example of some of the real-time collaboration and helping each other out with our hobby that you get if you've got Teams on your phone and people on both sides have Teams. I mentioned you don't need to know phone numbers. If you know someone's call sign, you can just call them on Teams with an audio call. Oh, it's free, by the way. I mean, most of us have plans now with all calls included, so it's not the killer feature that it used to be, but it's still useful to know. The search feature is really good. So in Teams, I don't really worry too much about where things are. I use the search feature. So long as I can remember a few key terms or the name of a document or part of the name of a document, for example, I just use the search feature. I don't care where it's stored. If it comes up in my search list, I just click on it and there it is. So you remember to use the search feature. With our license, we get free cloud-only versions. You do not get the license. We don't have the license to install the software on our computers, but you have the fully functional cloud versions. They're quite good. Very similar to most of the functionality in the installed version. So we get Word, Excel, OneNote in cloud versions. Teams, you can download and install the Teams app on your home computer. Apple's are also supported, as is Windows, of course. And you can install the Teams client on your mobile phone. Any platform is supported. Same thing goes for OneNote. So these two here, OneNote and Teams, both available, free products to download and install. And OneNote is one of my all-time favourite Microsoft products and has been since they brought it out in about 2007, if I'm not mistaken. And as I mentioned, you get a terabyte of free cloud storage. So you could go down to Officeworks and buy yourself a terabyte drive for $80, whatever it is these days, if you want to. That's okay. Me, I don't bother anymore. I don't bother with those things because I don't want to worry about theft, damage, RF in my cable signal if it's USB drive, none of that nonsense. I just stuck it all on the cloud and let Microsoft take care of it for me. So that's some of the things for you to think about as a member. Any questions on that? Yes, Bill.
Per user or for the club?
It's 1 terabyte per user.
Wow.
So everybody gets a terabyte. Thank you, Microsoft, for free to store whatever you like in there. Does not matter. All right, so demo. I'm just going to do a quick little demo of mostly Teams because that's the rest of it's really falling off a log simple. You have the option to use Teams on the native Teams app or in the web. All of the other programs you use in the web. OneDrive is a difference, as is OneNote. But Word, Excel, Outlook, the email clients, they're all driven through a browser. It should not matter whether you're on Linux or Apple or anything. It's a browser application, so that should be straightforward. There are some differences we've discovered in the Teams app when you are running on a Windows platform like I am here, compared with running on the native Teams app on an Apple device like Gary uses. So there are a couple of little variations there. But anyway, I'm just going to give you a quick look at Teams because Teams, I think, is the most interesting and useful thing in the context of our discussion here. So this is my Teams client. I'll just go back to the activity screen I'll start with. Can you guys on the phone see that Teams screen okay?
Yes, I can see the calendar.
Okay, good. So I'm just going to click on the activity. I've got no activity because we're not using it a lot at the moment, so there's not a flood of activity. If I was signed in using my business account, because we flogged this thing to death at work, there would be lots and lots of blinking lights and things. So in order, the things you need to know about Teams. Firstly, for those of you like me who may have multiple accounts, please make sure you are signed in with the correct account, and you check that just up in this top right-hand bubble with the face up there. Make sure you're signed in with your Redcliffe account because it's easy to miss. The content will normally show you pretty quickly, but I've got 3 different accounts I use for this, and sometimes I confuse myself. I go, where is this thing that I'm looking for? Hang on, I'm not signed in with the right account. So make sure you're signed in with the right account. Over on the left-hand side, we've got, I'll start with chat first. I love chat. I use chat a lot. I'm not as young as some people in the club and not as young as my kids who love chat, and they would be terrified to talk to people on a phone call, for example. So chat is very good. It's secure. So if Gary and I want to have a chat that's private, if we just fire up a chat here, I put in Gary's name and start a chat, that's a private conversation between Gary and myself. Anything we share in that chat is private and cannot be seen by anyone else. Although we can choose to invite other people in and make it a group chat, or you can start a chat as a group chat. So there might be a group around Redfest this weekend. We may decide we've got an urgent situation we need to figure out, so we need 5 people straight away on a group chat. We could do it through here. And as they said in the video, once you are in a chat with someone, I'll just pick my friend Steve here because he's nice and close and you can see him up on the screen. So Steve and I have shared a little bit of chat here backwards and forwards, but if Steve or I are in a chat here and I'm saying hello Steve down here, and we don't want to chat, it takes more than a chat conversation to sort something out. The thing I love about Teams, I don't need to look up his phone number or any of that activity. I simply go and click either the phone symbol or the video symbol up in the corner here, and instantly Steve and I are having a phone call or a chat. And if you're sitting there waiting for things to happen, I've got something ringing somewhere.
Yeah, hang on. Okay, I'll hang up on you.
My cameraman at the back of the room there, for those watching the video later and having a laugh at me, my cameraman is trying to join me on a call. But in all honesty, it's that easy to make calls with either audio calls or video calls. My example up the tower, when I want to show something, a video of something on my workbench that's got smoke coming out of it, I could get Charles on a video call and say, Charles, what's this smoke mean? Is that good or bad, right? So you've got those sorts of... That's right. Chat's very useful. In every chat window, you'll have these things in the top. You'll have the chat itself, which is this first tab. So the tab is up the top there. You'll also have a files tab by default. So you can put files, videos, whatever you like. It's a document you can attach, and that would be private between myself and Steve. If it was a group, it would be shared but private within that group. So I won't go on about chat. They are persistent, so they will stay pretty much forever. There's some things you can edit and some things you can delete. As an admin, I can go in and clean things up, but basically it's permanent information. So be careful what you put in chats in case e-discovery comes to get you down the track.
So you go to the files tab, you can put a file, you can share it with it.
Yes.
So where is that file stored? If you want to look outside the Teams, can you get outside of the Teams? Or you can't?
Technically, it's stored in the team chat or the files tab of the chat that you're having with the person or the group. Underneath the covers, it's stored on SharePoint.
Yep.
But again, this is where not to get too hung up on where it is, unless you want to share it. If you want to share it, you've got to find the source and then use the share icons to manipulate it. But up the top here, every single window in Teams, you'll have this search bar. You can see it up the top there, right? So long as I know the name of the file or part of the name of the file, I just would type it in there, Steve, and away I go. Let's use my Kenwood TS, whatever it was I said before, TS 140, I think it was. Oh, there you go. I had a 130 there, not a 140. TS dash. So I have no clue where this file is. I actually do know, but I don't need to know. Just by using the search feature with some common sense with terms that might be in the file name, for example. If I click on that TS 130 document now, it just turns up, right? So you don't need to know where things are necessarily. They'll normally turn up for you very easily. So that's the chat feature. Any questions on chat before I move on to Teams itself? Okay, so chat's a lot of fun and very useful. Teams is where the real work happens though in Teams. All right, so we're just going to talk very briefly about terminology. Anyone can create a team. You'll see down the bottom here on the left-hand side. We can create a team tonight. We can just go and click that button. Any of you can do it who has an account. And you could create a team called, I don't know, Friday night barbecue drinks. Maybe Bill and I and Alan are going to go and have drinks on Friday night. We want to create a little team to plan for it and get the entertainment organised and the sausages or whatever it might be, the beer. We could create a team like that without breaking sweat. It would take a moment. You just add your members into the team that you've created and there you go, you've got a team. It's as easy as that. I'm not suggesting everybody go crazy making teams, but if you want to play, it's not a problem. We can go and delete them just as easily as we create them. But anyone can make a team. It's useful to have more than one person because that's the whole concept behind the word team. You would normally have some people coming together to pursue some common interest or goal or task, and that's where it might be useful to create a team. So you see we've got a few here at the moment. We haven't gone too overboard here, which is good. When I first joined here, we had this team up the top, the Redcliffe Districts Radio Club Inc. team. That's kind of the official home team, if you like. And I'm just going to open it up and describe a couple of things about teams. So when you create any team, every team will have something called the general channel. So underneath the team, you've got these little line items. They're called channels. And as I said in the training video, it can be broken down by activity or function or group name or task or whatever it might be. It's up to you, it's free form. But every team always has a general channel. And the general channel is where you would typically put the high-level communications and announcements and news and things of that nature. And it's just a chat window, as you can see, a posts tab. Exactly right, Gary, exactly right. Also, every channel, this is a channel on the left, general channel. Every channel has a posts, which is chat tab, and it also has a files tab. Every single channel will have this. So you can put files in that files tab for that channel, and it doesn't sort of spill out and get confusing and messy and fill up other places. So if you had a channel called, for example, John Moyle Contest, which is this one right here, you can see there's a bunch of things, and this is from last year. Peter Schrader put a bunch of photos up. So I was talking earlier about the historical memories and information and evidence, if you like, of things the club has done. Here we have all of the photos and some documents, and it looks like some audio recordings and things from the John Moyle contest last year, 2022. In the files area, any photos or documents or audio recordings, things of that nature that you put into the posts tab, any file attachments will show up here in the files tab as well. So it's a very good way, of keeping your information, your collateral local to a group that's come together to do something particular, rather than having 10,000 files in one place that's hard to find. So you can see that we've got a few different channels. We've got one here for Redfest. Sadly, there's nothing in the conversation thing, so we haven't really talked much about the fact that it's there, and we've not used it for this year. However, one of the things that I think would be very useful, if we go and have a look at Jota here is a good example. When we did Jota last year, I tried to put some good information in here. And one of the things that I thought was useful, you can see all the photos here populating now. So you can see lots of photos and chat and information and what have you. But I just whacked together a quick little lessons learned document. So at the end of Jota last year, for those who were there, you remember we sat around for 10 or 15 minutes at the end of the day, wiping the sweat off our brow because it was hot, listening to the young people running around behind us, and said, what did we learn? What worked well? What didn't work well? What do we need to do differently or better next year? So if you do it on the spot in the Teams file, chuck it in the appropriate area, and that's it. Job's done. No more paper, no more sweaty arms on paper with pens and losing the documents and all this sort of nonsense. You put it up there in an electronic appropriate channel, and it's there as a historical record that you can then build from for the next event and years subsequent. Does that make sense for everybody? Okay, so that's teams. Each team is a coloured block here with usually the initials of the name. And here's a constitutional review. I won't go into detail, but you know that we've been doing a lot of work on the constitutional review. So we created a constitutional review team, a collaboration space. There's no need to get complex with it, but in the files area, we just have the small number of files that we are working on through the constitutional review. And this is the one here, the working document. If I won't open it up because it's confidential at the moment, but if I open that document up, you would see all of the various contributions that different people have made have been marked up onto the document. So we can see in real time what everybody thinks about the document and where it needs to be modified. Yes, Steve?
Yeah, I just got another question on the files area.
Sure.
Can you structure them with directories or something like that? I was thinking of education.
You absolutely can. Let me just go back here a little bit and show you a quick thing. So in the Redcliffe, so it's in the members one actually, if we're going to, no, I beg your pardon, I'll go back to this one. It's the general Redcliffe and Districts Radio Club team. Down there under library, and Ken might get upset here because he's put a lot of effort into the physical library. Over here in the library, if we go into the files area, remember I said HX gave me a thumb drive with a stack of documents for radios, okay? I looked at this thumb drive and it was a bunch of stuff, and oh, that's a bit of a mess. It was hard to find things. So I spent just a few minutes at home figuring, okay, well, how am I going to organise this? Probably by brand is a good idea. So this answers your question, Steve. It's very, very trivial. It's just like a file share on any server, for example, a Windows server. You can structure this quite deep and do all the sorts of stuff that you would normally do on a file server. And under the, let's go and look at our friendly Baofeng here. There's nothing in there. So you can have this nested as many layers deep as you would like, right, for your organisational needs. Does that make sense? So I do encourage you all to spend a bit of time in here. You can't break anything. Don't be nervous about getting there and having a play. It works just as well on a mobile phone as it does on a computer, like we're demonstrating here, although I personally find the small form factor a little bit cumbersome to use. Yes, Steve?
One more question.
Sure,
Sorry.
sure.
If you have the files up there, can you share those files with someone outside the organisation?
Yes.
As read only?
Yes. So let me show you how to do that. So by default, a very high level security, by default, everybody who is in a team, and you can see the 3 dots next to each of these teams. If we go and have a look at the manage team, and you can all do this, you may not be able to change things, but you can certainly look. If we go and look at members, we can see that we've got these several owners of the team who are admins. They can make changes, and then pretty much everybody in the club who has a 365 account should be a member of this team, and as you can see, that's the way it's been set up. So what that means is all of the people on this list here, all of them, have access by default to all of the content in that team. So that's how the security at a high level works. Members of a team have access to everything in that team. You can make it secret, but that's a different story for another day.
Can you restrict some of those members to read only? Like I teach people outside the Redcliffe Radio Club, right?
Yes.
I share my document using Google Drive at the moment, and I can share a read only so they can look at the files for the notes and things like that.
So I'll make it simple for the point of our video tonight. It's a long conversation, but no, it's okay. The simple answer is this. If you have content in there, and let me just go back to our manuals as a good example. So if I want to share one of these radio manuals with someone outside the club, and I'll use my personal address, I'll try and find a file here. Nope. I know there was an icon in there. Our lovely 7300, right? If we wanted to share this document with an external person. Sorry, Gary? Yeah, there's a few different ways you can do it. You can go to the 3 dots here. That's the way I typically do it, because 3 dots exist everywhere in Teams. If you click on the 3 dots and you get the share, copy, link, whatever. Now, watch carefully, because this answers your question, Steve, right?
Okay.
If we go and do a share or copy link, I'll do a share to start with. Right, now I can put Kevin's here. If I want to share that with my friend Kevin, I could just click his name and he'd get a link to the document, right? But let's say it's me and I'm not a member of the club. I'll use my personal email address. I can just type in my right, so that's an external email address. It's not bound by the security structures here. By default, I would not have any visibility or means to access this content. But because I've put that email address in there, down here is the important thing. So with anyone who has a copy of this link can do what? People with existing access can always edit it. That's normal. I can change that. And I can say view or edit.
Thank you. That's right.
So that's how you make things read only to share it to an outside party. Does that answer your question sufficiently for today? Yeah, okay.
And there's also another one, can or cannot download.
Can or cannot?
Download.
Download, yes. So there are a few little tricks, and they're usually exposed in this kind of interface, so it's usually right in front of your nose. You just got to pay attention and read what it looks at and click the little down arrows, and you'll normally be able to find your way quite quickly. If you're not sure, just jump onto the Microsoft training website or grab me if I'm around, and I can demonstrate how these things work. They're relatively straightforward in pretty much all cases, okay? So that's a quick little intro to Teams. The calendar here I'll just briefly mention. So tonight when I was preparing for this meeting, we hadn't sent out a Teams meeting. So I thought, oh, okay, well, how am I going to do this? So I had to jump through some hoops tonight because many of the recipients have private email addresses. So I had to do manual things to protect their privacy to send that out. It would be much easier if everyone was in the club with an address, because I would simply go and create another meeting like this. I'm creating a new member there, it's a test meeting. And I'm just going to send it to members. That single address there has all of the member email addresses within the 365 ecosystem. So that's what I'm saying. If we can do it that way, our life gets a heck of a lot easier, and we're not worried about exposing people's call signs, because we all know what our call signs are, right? So
can anyone send that email to members? Was this the executive?
no, I don't think we currently have restrictions on that.
Okay.
I'd need to check, but I think it's open at the moment. Yep.
Anybody can send that to members.
Correct. So anything you put in your calendar here automatically turns up in your Outlook calendar, and anything in your Outlook calendar automatically turns up over here as well. So you can manipulate your calendar in either place, and you can join meetings from either place and on your mobile phone as well. It all works the same way. So the only other thing I'll just say here is files. So they said it in the video, but basically you'll see that I've got, well, quite a few files here. This is my club file system. If I want to bother to go looking through this list and open a file, I can. It tells you where it's stored, which place in the ecosystem. But again, as I said, if I want to go and find the constitution file that we're all beavering away at the moment, I just go up into the search field. Again, it's at the top of all Teams windows. Constitution, there's my constitution review. I would just click that and be done with it. I couldn't be bothered going and finding a thing. Well, there's no point. That's just brain dead behaviour. So use the search feature. It's very, very powerful and all pervasive. It's very good. So I'm not going to talk about apps. There's lots and lots of other things you can do on the platform, but that's probably all I wanted to cover tonight. So are there any questions about Teams before I go to the final slide? So let me just talk briefly about the issue you're facing. It's not unheard of for Microsoft software or anyone's software to have problems. Microsoft have put a lot of effort into their platforms, but they're not perfect. Teams in particular gives me a bit more grief than I'd like it to give me. Okay. The typical thing we have is where people can't get in. Yeah. Usually, whether it's a computer or a phone, it's basically the same thing. Usually what you need to do is close the application and sign back in. That's usually all you need to do. Occasionally, I understand, and I watch Gary struggle a bit with Teams on the Apple as well, so I'm much more confident to say it works really well on a Windows platform. And the phones, both, I've got it on Apple and Android, they're generally pretty good, I suppose, but we'll have a look at that momentarily and just see what the issues are. They're normally not that difficult to solve. I've had Teams on an Apple phone for years and never had troubles with it, apart from the occasional Apple glitch. You've got to restart the phone once in a while. But that's a very good thing to do, and it's because I get into trouble on this Windows machine all the time because I'm always signed in as my work account. You can sign into some parts of the ecosystem with my club account, and it'll kind of be okay, but you'll go one step further and all of a sudden it'll say, I'm not playing the sandpit anymore, I'm confused, I don't know who you are. Please sign out of everything and start again. So I generally these days try and log out of everything with one account before I start logging into other things. It's just a much more seamless experience. I have sympathy for your issue, Kevin, and as a software provider to my customers across my businesses I work for, nothing frustrates me more than my end users having problems with the software, because then it's useless, right? Or worse than useless. Yeah. So let me just go to the last slide then. I just politely request anyone who's got a club email address to use it, because as Steve mentioned, we are in the same boat now where Microsoft are gently poking us in the ribs and saying you have more accounts than you are using, and that's been the case for a while. If you don't do something about that, we will take some of those spares off you, because I guess they have a global pool and they don't want that to get too big because they're not making any money out of us. So it behooves us to try and use the platform. You probably only need to log in once in a while, let's say once a month, and check your email. That's probably enough to keep it live in the telemetry. So if you have an email account, please use it. Have fun, explore, try things out. Like I said, Teams is a great product. It needs to be reliable, as Kevin has said, but if it's reliable for you, get in there and have some fun with it. Just goof around and get someone you know in the club that you're friendly with and take pictures of your soft drink can or your pizza or washing your car or whatever it might be, let alone radio stuff. Use the product and become familiar with it is the best thing you can do. Do spend a bit of time looking in the Teams collaboration spaces that we've put in there that you have access to. You won't have access to all the ones I've showed you because I'm an admin, but you'll have a good portion of those. go and have a look, go and have a poke around, look in the folders, click every button you can find and tab and what have you. Become familiar with the platform. I think pretty much everyone here has a club account, but if you don't, you want one, come and see me and I'll get it sorted out for you. And the same thing I do on Saturdays when I'm here is to get people signed up. Gary also often does it with people. We probably have a couple other people who can do it as well. But when you're talking with other friends in the club, ask them, hey, Glenn's been banging the 365 bin, the lid, make noise. Have you got a 365 account? Maybe you should sign up for it. Give it a try at least, right? That would be helpful. And go and have a look at the Microsoft website. A lot of videos on there. Typically they're between 1 and 3 minutes. And they're broken down into quite specific areas, so Teams and calendaring and Outlook and whatever it might be. Go and have a look, right? No skin off your nose, and if you can educate yourself, you'll be a more happy camper when you're trying to do something, particularly if the pressure's on like it's been tonight, you're trying to get everything to work at the right time. So that's it, folks. I encourage you to have some fun with the 365 ecosystem. Again, thank you to the former committee who organised this for the club. It's not an easy thing to jump through all the hoops that they jump through. And I know the current committee would be very pleased if we got more of an uptake and a bit more use of the product set, because if we don't, what will happen is it'll atrophy and we'll probably only end up with the committee using it for keeping committee business rather than a paper journal. And that's okay, it's not the end of the world, but I just think there's more richness there that we can benefit from if we use it widely across the club. All right, no worries, mate. Thank you for attending, appreciate it. I'm just going to stop the recording now. Thank you all for participating tonight for the Redcliffe Districts Radio Club Tech Chat Night about 365. Thank you, cheers.